But first, let's recap how we got here. We're only 18 days away from the start of this unprecedented season. In just the last 17 days, we've had a draft, an entire free agency period, and started training camp. Just this week, two former franchise point guards were traded for each other in Russ and John Wall, while their teams were already in camp. This is all part of a sprint during this pandemic to have a workable, if shortened, NBA season. Now, this schedule release show will include just games from now until the All-Star break in early March. Have you ever seen a major American sports league only put half a schedule out before? Yeah, me neither. But the league wants to maintain flexibility in case of COVID-related delays and postponements. The goal is a 72-game season that ends May 17th, then a play-in tournament, and a playoffs that can end in July. Now, in order to cut down travel, there are significantly more back-to-backs between teams, home and homes, or just home and home and home and homes. Here's an example. In January alone, the Sixers will play consecutive games against the same opponent at the same location 4 times. So hosting the Hornets, then the Heat, the Celtics, then going over to Detroit to play 2 games in 3 days there. So yeah, we are 18 days away, an unprecedented season in an unprecedented time. And before we get to more of the marquee games, Matt, as a player, how do you change how you prepare for a season that is going to look like this?
I think it's just different for each player. Obviously, Bron has had about 2 months off, so I think he'll slowly but surely start revving his engine, even starting in training camp. I don't see him participating fully in training camp in the first. Obviously, he'll probably play their Christmas game, but kind of pace himself, understanding it's a marathon. But some guys like Trae Young said he hasn't played in 9 months.
Right.
You know, some of these younger guys are excited to get back out there. At the end of the day, I think they understand how special this is. If 2020 has taught us anything, it's not to take anything for granted. So no matter what the circumstances are, back-to-back games. I remember the lockout season, Paul, we first came back. We played, 3 games in 4 nights?
Yeah.
It was crazy. So these guys are excited to get back out and play, but I expect the superstars to ease their way into the season.
What about you, Paul?
These athletes, NBA players are the most adaptable athletes in the world. I mean, since I've come into the league, like Matt said, we've had 3 lockouts. Right. You know, we had 50-game seasons. We started on Christmas. We had a bubble. I mean, we just coming off a season that said this was unprecedented. Now we're coming to another season.
Right.
The league, the players, they're ready for anything. Right. It's about just being ready mentally. We already know they're going to be in physical shape. I mean, they're going to do something they haven't done before. They're going to play in their arenas without fans. They're going to play back-to-back against the same teams in the same arena. So there's nothing these NBA players can't do. I mean, I don't put nothing past them. They'll make the adjustment.
Because at the end of the day, they're just still playing basketball. Yeah. I mean, considering what's going on in the world, these guys are getting to play basketball, so they'll be ready.
Well, I know you guys are all creature of habit, though. You have your game day routines, but those have been disrupted already for any team that participated in the bubble. So people are kind of used to throwing it all up in the air, just like the rest of us are with all of our lives, right? We all had our routines, and those went out the window. All right, as was released earlier this week, here is the opening week national TV slate. Now, on opening night, we have December 22nd on TNT. KD finally making his official Nets debut and gets to face his former team, the Warriors. Would have been a little more juicy with Clay there, but boy, it's still a really good matchup. Followed by ring night in LA as the Clippers face the champion Lakers.
Hey, ring night, of course they bring the Clippers.
Of course they do.
I'm not sure if I'll come out of the locker room when
We're going to collect that and we're going to make you watch. On December 23rd, Giannis and the Bucks facing the Celtics on TNT. Then CP3 making his debut for the Suns against Luka and the Mavs on ESPN. I can't wait for that one. On Christmas Day, starting at noon on ESPN, Pelicans Heat. Then on ABC at 2:30, we'll have Warriors Bucks, Nets Celtics, and Kyrie's return to Boston. Mavericks Lakers at 8, Luka LeBron. And finally at 10:30, Clippers Nuggets in a Western Conference Semis rematch. Now, Paul, I know you are a huge believer in Luka's star potential. Is he ready to be opposite LeBron for the Christmas primetime game?
I mean, I would have put KD in that spot. You know, I mean, he's a young up-and-coming star, and he's must-see TV. I mean, but he's not there yet, not opposite of LeBron. You know, you got to say either Giannis or KD, someone of that stature. But, you know, the kid is must-watch TV, and he's puts up hell of a stats. And he did get a triple-double the last time he played against Bron.
Those games have been good.
I mean, so I don't mind it at all. It's probably the truth.
I love it. I mean, it's there. Luka's next in line. I think he's in line still. I say within the next 3 to 4 years, it'll be Luka's league. And I'm saying within that 3 to 4 years, he still might take an MVP. But I think, you know, there's still some guys ahead of him, like Paul said. But, he's definitely must-watch TV. What he did in the bubble, what he's done since he's touched this game has been so special. So I'm excited to see him go against Bron on the big game on Christmas Day.
And that leap he made from year 1 to year 2 was unusual, so unusual,
yes.
right? And then what he's going to do from there, we can only wait and watch. Now, one of the other marquee days in the first half of the schedule is, of course, Martin Luther King Day, featuring 5 nationally televised games. The first 2 are going to be on NBA TV, and the last 3 on TNT, concluding with Bucks Nets and Warriors Lakers. Now, ABC is going to have 7 games starting January 30th through the All-Star break, including 5 Saturday primetime games. This is a good schedule. Lakers Celtics, Warriors Mavs, KD back in Golden State, Heat Lakers finals rematch, Clippers Bucks, and I mean, there's so many good matchups here. Paul, what do you want to see most from these marquee showcase matchups?
I want to see KD versus Giannis. Because, look, in many people's eyes, we know LeBron just showed everybody he's still the best in the league. Giannis is a 2-time MVP, but still might not even be the best in the Eastern Conference.
Talk to him.
With KD coming back. So I'm intrigued to see, like, that matchup right there. And then KD being off so long, like, look, saying, I'm back, y'all. I know he's been the MVP the last 2 times, but I'm still in the league. And my name is Kevin Durant.
Right. I think people quickly forget because he hasn't played in so long who he was and what he was about. He was running with my homeboy Rico Hines runs at El Camino College this past offseason, and everybody was impressed. So I think he's going to be the common theme throughout the first 2 months or maybe in the whole season just because he's bouncing back off an Achilles. But everyone that I've talked to and has seen him play says he looks like KD. So I'm excited for it. They're my excited. If they stay healthy and can gel, they're coming out the East for me.
I mean, by the way, also playing with Kyrie Irving.
Early too, right?
Right?
That's,
I mean, don't forget, there's games you turn on the TV and Kyrie.
That's Matrodamus.
Right?
They got a nice.
We need a graphic for that.
Matrodamus.
Predictions.
It early.
Yes,
he's got the whole thing going. No, I mean, you could be, turn on your TV for Kevin Durant and get the Kyrie Irving show, right?
Yeah,
I mean, there are nights where nobody handles the ball like that.
That's what makes them scary. And you got to think the rest of their core, too. They still got a good, solid, young core, too. Re-signing Joe Harris, having Karis LeVert and DeAndre Jordan and Dinwiddie. I mean, and then, Steve Nash, the Steve Nash experiment. And those guys respect him. And I'm interested to see what kind of mind he brings to that kind of team. So the Nets, if they can stay healthy and get that chemistry, they're going to be scary this year.
Now, Paul, I don't know when you guys first got to the Nets. Maybe it was the last time everyone put the Nets all over the national TV schedule, Christmas Day, ABC games. Maybe after you're there for a little bit less so. But now the Nets are back, ladies and gentlemen.
They're definitely back.
We will see what happens. All right, coming up in the show, after a transaction frenzy the last 2 weeks, where will Russell Westbrook, John Wall, Gordon Hayward, and others start their new journeys? We will discuss. But first, a distant replay from this date. Welcome back to the Jump schedule release special. Besides CP3's debut, so many more old faces will debut on December 23rd in new places. Besides the aforementioned CP3 versus Luka duel on ESPN, Russell Westbrook will make his Wizards debut in Philly. John Wall will face the Thunder. The Hornets' Gordon Hayward will start against Cleveland, and all the new Hawks that Vince Carter said would be going there will start in Chicago. We had a little Vince Carter breaking news section of our free agency special, and he was dead on. Matt, which of these debuts are you most interested to see?
We got KD out of the way. That's who I'm most excited to see. But I'm excited to see how John and Russ do in their new situations. To me, that trade didn't make a lot of sense to me because they're so similar in game. Obviously, Russ is more decorated with accolades, a little bit older, but they're very similar. But I'm really excited to see what CP3 does for Devin Booker and Aiden out there, because Chris, you can say what you want, but he makes every team he plays on better. He's going to be probably the best thing that's happened for Devin Booker, allowing him to play off the ball and take a lot of attention off him and a lot of pressure off him. So I'm really looking forward to what CP3 does with those young Phoenix Suns.
Well, for me, it's going to be John Wall. And it's going to be like this. And it's been like this. It's always going to be that player that you always pair with James Harden because of his style of play. So it was like I was interested to see CP3 when he first got there. I was interested to see Russ. And now it's John, because the way Harden's style of play is so interesting. The way it contrasts with these other guys, sometimes we don't think it matches. Like, John Wall's about as pure point guard that you have in the league, and he needs the ball.
Right.
And we all know Harden's usage rate on the ball. This was made him an MVP and the player he is today. So it'll be interesting to see that dynamic because I think one of them has to change. I mean, I don't see Wall running the lane, running to the corner, shooting threes, spotting up. And so it'll be interesting to see if Harden takes that role and becomes that player at this stage in his career, which I don't know if
it's also there's so much behind the scenes going on there with the Rockets. Is Harden going to want to stay? Is James going to want to change his style for a situation he might not stay with? I mean,
it just depends. I think James Harden has a choice whether he wants to just be one of the all-time great scorers, offensive threats in the game, or actually try to win a championship. And it's up to him because he can if he wants to. I think the next step is kind of coming off the ball more and then knowing that anytime you want, you can get your shot, but let the team play and flow and let everyone else get going. So it's not always three guys looking at you. And whenever James decides to take that next step, if Paul said it, if he wants to, then that's where they're going to be in contention. But I like what they've done. If you can get a healthy John Wall and a healthy DeMarcus Cousins, people are forgetting about Boogie. If you can get a healthy Boogie Cousins, you got PJ Tucker there still. They got the young kid, forgive me, I forgot his name, they just picked up from Detroit.
Yep, I'm with you too. Sorry, the center.
Yeah, you know what I mean? So I think they're putting some...
I've been talking about him all day. It's Christian Wood.
Sorry about that. But yeah, he flew under the radar and played really well at the end of the season. But it's up to James. Is he going to go? Is he going to force a trade? Because the last thing you want is an unhappy superstar the whole season.
Well, also, Paul, you mentioned John Wall, and you know John so well from playing with him. I'm from the D.C. area, and I covered him. People kind of forgotten about John Wall. I'm sorry. The talent level of that dude. Now, incredible. I don't know what he is going to be like. The history of guards with Achilles injuries, it's not great when they come back. What do you expect from John?
Well, I think he's going to be a smarter player. I mean, you got to understand, he's came in as one of the most athletic point guards that we've probably ever seen, and he depends on that. And now he's probably going to lose some of that athleticism as he gets up there in age in this injury. So I'm going to see probably a more efficient John Wall. You know, a guy who's probably worked on his shot, knocking down shots a little more, a higher IQ. Not that he wasn't before, but he was a high IQ player. So I think injuries tend to help you learn the game a lot more because you sit back and you watch and see how you can get better.
You think he's got to study the game, like Paul said. He's got to be a student of the game because he hasn't played since December 26th of 18. You know what I mean? So it's coming up on 2 full years of him actually not playing basketball. We had him on the show earlier on All the Smoke. He said he's feeling great. He's explosive. He's, and like I said, I think the next step in his game is the mental step. And not that he wasn't a smart player before, but with age and time off, being able to see how you can affect the game, I think he'll come back and be very effective if the Achilles is completely healed.
Well, physically, he probably could have come back for the bubble and the team, just everybody elected, let's be smart here, right? But that maybe extra padding of time is maybe a good thing when you're looking about the chance of re-injury. We'll just have to see. I want to ask you guys about the Toronto Raptors because they are going to spend at least the next 3 months away from Canada, play their home games in Tampa, Florida at the Tampa Bay Lightning's arena. This is, of course, due to the travel restrictions between Canada and the U.S. right now. Whether they will return to Toronto after the All-Star break in March, who knows? No one knows about anything going on in March. Here are a few notable games that the Raptors will play in Tampa, starting with the Pelicans on December 23rd, the Celtics on January 4th, and a 2-game home set against both the now fellow Floridians, I guess, the Heat, and then the 76ers. So, Paul, how do you see this forced relocation affecting Toronto, the players? I mean, they might move back in the middle of the season.
I mean, out of all the teams in the league, they're most affected. I mean, you're not asking no other team in the league to play outside of their home arena. I mean, not that we're not going to have fans, but you got to understand the comforts of being at home, going into the house that you bought or the apartment or wherever you live, coming home to your family, going to your practice facility. You know, players are by nature, they like routine. They go to their favorite restaurants after games or before games. And now you're going to a totally foreign environment, to a city who probably none of them have been to. Tampa's a great city, but I'm sure people don't just wake up and say, I want to go to Tampa. So
nice in the winter, Paul.
It's a great place. I've been there. But, you go to Miami, you go to Florida for the most part. And so they're going to be a team at a disadvantage out of all the teams to start the season.
But I think, to piggyback off that, if any team can handle it, it's them. They have great veteran leadership in Kyle Lowry. Nick Nurse is a great coach. They've been through the wars. They've won championships. They've done it without Kawhi. So I think this team is ready, can handle it. Obviously, it's going to be a disadvantage not being at home. But, they landed in Tampa. So it's going to be, at least it's a nice city. The weather's nice. And we're just in unfortunate circumstances right now. So like I said, I think it's going to be tough. But I think this team can definitely handle it. And I don't see it affecting.
But think about this. You just come from the bubble. And then it's like, damn, you don't even get to go home. So just psychologically, you're like,
It wears on you.
It wears on you.
If
So
you have
that
kids who
can
go to
cause an
school,
effect
right?
on a player.
Yes.
You know, so my hat's off. You know, if they got through the bubble, they can get through this.
Yeah, absolutely. And I will say, I don't know what the rules on fans are going to be, particularly in Florida, because they have some different ideas down there about how many people should gather inside a building. But there are a lot of snowbirds, the Canadians who go retire in that part of Florida. So there is some natural support for them there. I don't know. I'm trying to make it sound. We definitely wish the Raptors luck and success, because this is a real challenge for them. Coming up, as the season awaits, but the pandemic, of course, continues, how will teams adjust with little or no fans in the stands? What are the rules going to be? Brian Windhorst joins us next on The Jump to break it all down. Stick with us.
Playoffs and actually make some noise.
I love to play. I play hard. I compete.
I understand how the game can be taken away from you.
It's going to be a good one. Welcome back to the NBA's schedule release special right here on The Jump. Here are some notable return games for stars who changed teams this offseason. Kyrie scheduled to play his first game back in Boston on Christmas Day. Now, he didn't change teams this year, but last year never played in Boston, so this will be his return. Westbrook's first game back in Houston, January 29th. Kevin Durant making his return to Golden State February 13th on ABC. We now welcome in New York Times bestselling author, NBA senior insider, coming to us live from the Cobra Dome. It's Brian Windhorst. Some of these return games, Brian, going to feel much differently this season than in years past, because there won't be fans in the stands in a lot of places to either shout or clap or do anything to these guys. How is the league and all 30 teams going to make this season appealing to fans watching on TV when a lot of these buildings are empty and not always we're getting all the players that we thought we might play if COVID or something else strikes?
Yeah, well, we're not going to know how Kyrie feels about it, because he just announced a media blackout for the season. He's not going to talk. So we'll just make assumptions for him. The issue is
he issued a statement
that,
saying
with
that,
no
correct?
fans, Yes, he did. It was quite a statement. The issue with it is that there's really not going to be anything like home road, especially early in the season. But I think it's important to realize that there are two halves of this schedule, and there are going to be games in the first half where the home road balance is going to feel different, because you're not going to have the animosity going into an opposing arena, especially if you're a player who's coming back and potentially could get booed. But there's going to be that second half of the schedule, hopefully, knock on wood, after the vaccine becomes much more available in the country, and we may be able to see a very different NBA. As we see what we see at the start in December could be so different than what we see in April and in May.
But it's going to be hard, guys, right? Because I love these virtual boards. I got really used to them. It felt good. Got to see Paul up there. But you can't do that in arenas where you do have some fans in the building, right? You can't block the view of the court. So for TV, it's going to look a little different, and the players are going to feel it differently. Paul, do you think that players who were in the bubble, at least, those teams, that they have adjusted to playing in a quieter gym?
I don't think so. I don't think you can ever adjust when you've been playing like that your whole life. I mean, think about a guy like LeBron James. He won a championship in the bubble year, but he's been playing in front of fans since probably 3 years old. He's been playing in front of sold-out arenas. And so it's hard to really get adjusted to that. I mean, I really feed off the crowd. You know, it's good for some teams. Some teams like Atlanta, they don't really have a large crowd. They don't really mind it. You know, but just that crowd, what the lift it gives you. Because are you telling me the Clippers, they're up 3-1 in the series, if they're in front of their home crowd, do they give that lead up?
Yeah.
I don't think so. So that's a tough adjustment to make for the players.
Well, we did.
Y'all had that crowd behind y'all. Man.
That was amazing.
We came back. We gave up a 3-1. It's tough. Obviously, we've been born to play in front of crowds. That's what we've been doing our whole careers.
Yeah.
But we understand what the circumstances are. I think that the bubble gave people a great taste of what it's going to be like. Obviously, going to a larger arena is going to be different, but I really feel like the NBA has done a great job, and they're going to have some tricks up their sleeve to hopefully shrink the room or shrink the arena somewhat and still make it exciting. But what I like is, obviously, with the shortened seasons, there's just so much more attention to detail, and games mean more, and then we have the play-in stuff now. So I think they're going to do everything they possibly possibly can with crazy schedules and situations just to continue to keep the hype around the league, to keep the fans tuned in.
We obviously have more back-to-backs this time because they are trying to play in a condensed schedule. So, Brian, what is the league telling teams about resting players while also realizing that 99% of the fans are going to be watching these games on TV, and when the stars don't show up, that's not good for business?
Yeah, I think we're going to see a whole, change in the way teams use players because, frankly, they're going to have to protect them early on, especially in the first 2 months of the season. Now, the one thing that is difficult to comprehend and that the league understandably isn't making public is that there's been at least 100 players to test positive for COVID, both back in June and then this last week. And there's probably been dozens more, if not triple digits more, who've dealt with this illness away. So there's going to be a bunch of people who have antibodies. But the team's number one priority is going to protect the players for the long haul and to protect outbreaks so that if a player does get sick, they're going to have to isolate that player and they're going to be very careful in how fast they want to bring them back because one of the things that we're seeing here is that for some people this lingers. So there's going to be bigger rosters. The active rosters per game are going to be bigger, and that is probably going to mean that individual games will probably mean less, especially for teams like the Lakers who are coming off a short off season.
Yeah, but you look at the key dates, right, for the 2020-2021 season, Brian, and you talk about the COVID impact. They've got teams playing 4 games a week. This isn't like the NFL where there's a 6-day break, guys, between games, and you can kind of see how much it's run rampant through your franchise. And by the way, you've been breathing and sweating directly with no football helmets, no baseball field to spread out over. On the other teams, if you get a positive test, I am very intrigued, and there will be, by the way, there will be positive tests.
There will.
How they are going to manage the ripple effect when they're already trying to cram the season together. I don't know what you guys as players would want them to do or feel comfortable with.
This is going to be a major, this season more than any is going to, the COVID and injuries are going to have more effect on playoff seeding or teams making or not making the playoffs than ever before. And I can see that coming. You're going to have guys miss 3 or 4 games because of COVID, and then you could be 1 game behind a playoff spot in a position where a guy that you really need in your rotation is not going to be there. And so this is going to have effect all the way down the line, though. And so it's fair game. I mean, it's fair game across the league. So everybody's going to have to deal with it. It's not like it's subject to just 1 team or 2 teams. It's all across the league.
Well, this what makes the play-in tournament so special now.
Yeah.
Because you're probably going to lose key guys throughout the season, and hopefully you can have everyone healthy towards the end of the season. But this is going to give that 7 to 10 spot. It's going to be up for grabs because I'm sure there might be a team that we would have thought would have been at least in the top 3, maybe top 5, that maybe slipped down to 8 or 9 because of bad luck with COVID testing. So this is going to bring that much more excitement to the play-in tournament, I think.
One of the challenges with this schedule, when the league, when you look at the entire thing, as I have, there is definitely what they call baseball scheduling, where the teams are going to stay in a city and play a couple of games. But when the league made the decision to play home and home against the other conference, East-West, it meant that there's going to be 4 and 6 game road trips. It's just going to happen. The Golden State Warriors are opening the season with a 4-game road trip. And if you're going to relocate 4, 5, 6 times, you are going to run a higher risk of getting players infected. We are looking at college basketball and seeing all kinds of postponements and cancellations. We are seeing college basketball teams in some cases fly on 2 different planes to try to limit the possibility of outbreak. We are seeing teams reschedule games like, hey, you and I are free on Friday, let's play. And I think there's a possibility, especially early in the season, we could see that. The most important